Well, hello, this is Non-Monogamous Mark. I'm the co-founder and executive director of the nonprofit Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association. And tonight we're going to be talking about enjoying an uncomplicated, sexually liberated, ethically and consensually non-monogamous life. You see, I remember a number of years ago, for instance, when I first got onto Facebook, I was married, but yet I was also available, just like a single person would be available. And so do I consider myself married or do I consider myself single? And so I look, at the different options that Facebook had for us to choose from as to, telling people a little bit about ourselves. And they had married, single, and it's complicated. And so, that was then what I chose. That's what I picked. And some people, they'll go ahead and maybe that I know have known single people that, they don't necessarily want to divulge that they're non-monogamous. And so they go ahead and talk about the fact that their relationship status is complicated. And people just don't understand that and don't know what that is. And tonight we're going to talk about having an uncomplicated, ethically and consensually non-monogamous lifestyle. You see, because for me, it became part of my norm in my lifestyle is to have a complicated non-monogamous lifestyle. And over the years, as I've talked to other non-monogamous individuals, whether they be swingers or whether they be polyamorous, they discussed that it was kind of the similar situation where their life was just complicated. And with us at Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association, we focus on not only your sex life and your relationships, we also focus on your finances and also your health. And we hope tonight to say a couple things in helping you to uncomplicate your life, because we want you to be able to live an uncomplicated, ethically and consensually non-monogamous life that is sexually liberated so that you are having the dream life that many people can only dream of. But for you, it is a real life. And so we're going to talk about that tonight. In fact, I've got 5 different reasons why things get complicated in people's lives. Now, as I talk about these 3 things, just think about your life. Well, let's back up one more time on this before I get into that. Let's go ahead and talk about your preparation for this. You see, one of the things is that if you don't expect to get much from this, then, you probably don't have pen and paper in hand, and you will get out of this what you expect. However, one of the keys to my trainings that I give is that if you come prepared with pen and paper in hand, then one of the things you'll find is having that pen and paper in hand so that you can take notes. You will actually go ahead and get a lot more out of this session. Unfortunately, I was the last couple of weeks, I've just been very, very busy with trying to get a lot of things done on the house project that I'm working on. In fact, today was move out day of moving out of the house that I'm selling and moving into the house that I'm going to be building a 3,000 square foot addition onto and creating a co-housing for clothing optional, sexually liberated, ethically and consensually non-monogamous people. And so that depending upon what the city will allow me, I'm still working out those details, be 6 to 8 couples that will be able to have a co-housing situation, create a co-family. And so, so anyway, I've been very busy. So last week and a half ago on a Friday night, my girlfriend, Chris, she had gotten tickets to Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. And I was just thrilled about that. I mean, I love his teachings. He wrote one of my absolute favorite books called The 5 Levels of Attachment. And so, I was in a rush and we went and we left to go to the event for the evening. And neither one of us on the way there, we realized neither one of us had a notepad and paper with us, which is really unusual. It's my habit to carry a notepad and paper with me. And so, unfortunately, then I was thinking about when I was making my notes to prepare for today's lesson and today's training, I was thinking about that event a week and a half ago. And even though it was just a week and a half ago, that the points that we talked about, my girlfriend and I, Chris and I, we talked about the points that really stuck out to us after the event. And as we talked about that, there were some things that were just really, really high points for me. And yet those high points I wanted to bring in today's training, but because I did not write them down, I don't have anything to jog my memory, and I've been so busy today, I haven't had time to really focus on trying to remember them, and it's just not there. And so I'm going to encourage you to make sure that when you join me on my trainings, to have a pen and paper handy, because then you'll get so much more out of the training, because you're coming expecting to get 1 or 2 or 3 little nuggets. And that 1, 2, or 3 little nuggets, I do these trainings once a week. I do 2 trainings a week, in fact, with my coaching, my Monday night coaching sessions. And so with 2 trainings a week, if you were to either watch the videos or come to them live, where the benefit of coming to them live is you get a chance to participate in asking questions in the chat. So I see there's someone that has joined us here now. And if you do want to ask questions or anything, feel free to go ahead and enter the chat with either saying hi or just, asking a question or making a comment, whatever you'd like to do on that. But that way you can participate in what we're doing here. That's why I do these events live instead of just making a video recording of them, putting the video on my YouTube channel. It gives you a chance to interact and ask questions and make comments as well. But so anyway, that when you come and you get just 1 or 2 or 3 nuggets, out of, let's say, 100 trainings a year that I do, if you got an average of 2 nuggets of real valuable information to you that could really stack up to make a difference in your life, that's 100 things a year that'll make a difference in your life. And that is, in fact, that's one of the things that Don Miguel said. He said that our life is the cumulative sum total of all of our yeses and all of our nos. When you think about that, your whole life is directed by your yeses and your nos, and that is what really makes your life what it is, and makes you who you are, is the yeses and the nos in your life. And so when you come and take some notes, and you get a couple nuggets, then over the course of a year, and if you review those just a couple times, like I have a system where a process where I'll go for and have a week that I will review out of like every 10 weeks. Let's see, chat disconnected. Please wait while we try to reconnect you. Okay. I guess then the chat is not working for some reason right now, but YouTube's trying to figure that out. So at any rate, I'm going to get started then. Again, let me just go ahead and reintroduce myself if you're coming on board a little late, but I'm Non-Monogamous Mark, and I am the co-founder and executive director of Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association, where we try to help you to create an intentional life that is a sexually liberated life that increases your abundance, your liberation, and your freedom financially, also with your health and sexually as well. And so, and it's a non-monogamous life. And so if it's something that you have experienced and explored and you are non-monogamous, then welcome. If it's something you are curious about or that you have questions about, we'll certainly welcome as well. But so that tells you a little bit about me. And at the end, I'll tell you a little more about the Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association that we co-founded. But let's go ahead and get started with this on creating for yourself a less or an uncomplicated, in fact, is an uncomplicated, sexually liberated, ethical and consensual non-monogamous life. And so I'm going to start out by giving 5 reasons of things that, the reasons why things get so complicated. And if the chat starts working again, if you have a reason yourself that you think that makes life complicated? It doesn't matter if you're talking about a non-monogamous life or a monogamous life, but what makes your life complicated? So feel free to put that in the chat if the chat starts to work. Let me just see if it is giving me any. I know that right before getting on here, I was having some difficulty with the internet here. Again, in the process of moving also, I'm going to just go ahead and see if I can activate this. Just a moment. Okay, well, it looks like that I've got it activated there. So if anybody wants to go ahead and contribute or ask questions or comments, so like that it's working, and so go ahead and do that. So 5 reasons that things get complicated. The first reason is that things get complicated when you try to control that which is outside yourself rather than control your own thoughts, feelings, and words about it. You see, because we all like to be in charge, but unfortunately, we don't have a real good understanding, a good grip on what it is that we can be in charge of. And the thing that we can be in charge of is yourself, your own energy, and your physical being. Now, your own energy, what that is, I talk about frequently, that's your words, your thoughts, and your feelings. And you can be in control. Now, a lot of people would say, well, Mark, no, those things, your thoughts, your words, your feelings, you can't control those. Well, this really is an exercise, and I'm known for stretching and exercising your mental muscle. And that's one of the things that you can, if you practice that muscle, if you exercise that mental muscle, you can be totally in control of your thoughts, your words, and your feelings. And so that when you are not feeling like, I was really stressed out the other day. And so one of the things that I knew that the way I was feeling, and I was feeling very anxious, and that's not how I wanted to feel. And so instead of putting my thoughts and my feelings on the fact that I was feeling really stressed out, I instead stopped. This is my formula I go over quite often. You stop, take a breath, and then reset. And so I did that throughout the day several times, and even in talking with my partners, and because they could tell that I was being very stressed without the things that I'm getting behind schedule on, so stop, take a breath, and then reset. And sometimes, that when you take that breath, you have to figure out what is just taking a couple deep breaths. Is that what's needed? Do I need to meditate? Do I need to go on a hike or get grounded? Like my partner, Kat, she gets grounded by going to the beach. I get grounded by going hiking. And so, do you need to do something like that? Or sometimes just need to go to bed and get up and start over the next day. And so stop, breathe, and reset. And so things get complicated when you try to control that which is outside of yourself rather than control your own thoughts, feelings, and words about it. I'll never forget when my partner Kat learned this lesson. We were about a year into our relationship. And one of the things that was a constant struggle, and this is what oftentimes complicates non-monogamous lifestyles, and that is the schedule. How am I going to figure out who I'm going to spend time with? And I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And it can get very stressful. And scheduling is one of those tasks that can be very complicated. And so, we had ended up creating complication by, creating rules. And the rules are I'm going to spend half my time equally. Make sure it's equal between both my partners. And instead of just serving myself, and that's one of the first steps here is that to serve yourself. You got to love yourself first before you can love others. And so, and be honest with yourself, where do you want to spend your time? And that can change and fluctuate from one month to another month. And your partners need to honor that and need to respect that. And so we had been a number of times, we put together a 1 month schedule, and I put together a 1 month schedule, and then I sent it out to my two partners, and I have them look at it just in case they have something coming up. You like, Chris got these tickets for Don Miguel, and I want to make sure that I'd love to go see that with her as well. And so I want to make sure that I was available for that. And so we want to take and make sure that we're, doing the things that we're wanting to do with our partners, but we want to make sure that we're serving ourselves as well. And so I create a schedule and I send it out to my partners, let them give a little feedback. And then this particular situation, Kat and I, we were out for a walk in a park close to where she worked, and she was really having some stress, some complication over the schedule. And the fact is, Kat's personality is she's someone who's very much in control of things. And so this was something that she wasn't having the control that she wanted. And because she wasn't having the control that she wanted, she was actually then trying to exert control to something that was outside of herself. And I finally pointed that out. I said, the whole problem here is that you're trying to control this to make it the way that you want it to be. And that's why you have a problem and stress and anxiety over the whole scheduling process. And so that's one of the things that we do is we try to control the things that are outside of ourselves instead of control the things that are within ourselves. And what can we control within ourselves? Our thoughts, our feelings, our words. That's our energy. And then physically, we can control, where our body is at in a particular time and place. So we control our physical being. And so, those are the things you control, and the other things, you just got to let go of it. And so the second reason that things can get complicated is because we become possessive about something or someone that is outside of ourselves. Again, something or someone. We become possessive. It's like as a little child, we learn to say, that's mine, mine, mine. And when we learn about monogamy, he's my husband, he's my boyfriend, he's my girlfriend, she's my wife. And so, those are possessive words, and we program our mental being and our emotional being in a way that we want to take possession of things. And some people can take possession of those things where they just want to really, like I use the example for a woman, they just really want to dig their claws in, or for a man who really wants to get a good grip on it, and yet we're trying to possess somebody or something that's not something we really can possess to the degree that we're trying to possess it. And so that's very similar, kind of close to the control issue, but it's a little different in that control, we're not necessarily trying to possess. We're just trying to control, and whereas possession, that's a very monogamous norm that when you start living your life as an ethical, consensual, non-monogamous being, then that's a norm you have to learn to change from being possessive to allowing the freedom of others. And that's really what I discuss about the difference between being sex positive and sexually liberated. Part of being sexually liberated is that you will take and get to a place where you really love having your partner go out and be with other people emotionally and sexually, because that that your partner's taking great joy and great pleasure in that. And when your partner is having great joy and great pleasure, then that's a wonderful thing for you. And so you don't have that possession then going on. So reason number 3 as to why things get complicated is things get complicated because you get a heavy attachment to something or someone. I'll confess. I have a heavy attachment to my cat, and my cat has a heavy attachment to me. And it used to be that I had heavy attachments in my relationships. The speaker that I went to hear the other night, Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., wrote a book called The 5 Levels of Attachment. And that's a book that my partner, Chris, she, I think, must have been about 8 years ago that she shared that with me, that she had heard about Don Miguel Sr. and also then his senior, Don Miguel Jr.'s dad was an author, and then Jr. became an author and written some really great books and great work. So Chris had gotten, for me as a gift, she'd gotten me the book, The 5 Levels of Attachment. And I read that because that was something I really needed at that time. At that time, I was going through a breakup with a woman whose name was Daphne, and I mean, while I wasn't going through the breakup, it was a year after the breakup. I had been broke up for 2 years before I finally started to let go of that relationship, because I was highly attached to that relationship. And when I would get into relationships, and it may have even been a couple of years after that, because after my relationships after that, I was always someone I would get very highly emotionally attached. And so that what Chris noticed, and as did my wife as well, and they noticed that when a relationship would end, I had such deep attachment. I really had a hard time letting that relationship go so that I could enjoy moving on with myself and my life and my new relationships and the relationships that I have. It became a problem for the relationships I had. Like, for instance, I had Chris in my life, and I had my wife Lisa in my life, and then I'd have, because I always had like 3 or 4 relationships going on at a time. And then a lot of times, yes, just like when we're young, we don't always marry everybody. We end relationships, and that's part of the whole courting process. And so it's good that relationships end. But I would become so attached then when a relationship would end, sometimes that it would affect my other relationships as well. And because emotionally and mentally, and I just was in misery. And so that's where then Chris had gotten this book, 5 Levels of Attachment. And I read that book, and it just made so much sense to me. And he talks to Don Miguel Ruiz, this is not about non-monogamy. He talks about the levels of attachment in anything. There are people that are, for instance, vegans that are so attached to their vegan way of life that they cannot be in the presence of anybody that's not a vegan. I met a family a 2-3 months ago. I met a family. It's a mom and a dad and a daughter who's like college age. I don't know if she's in college or not, but she's like college age. And her dad opened up a little tiny deli. And one of the things that her dad served in his deli, because they're vegans at home, but one of the things that his dad served in the deli was meat sandwiches. And because he served meat sandwiches that were particularly also made in the deli, that his daughter would not come and step foot in that deli. And, she had such an attachment to the vegan philosophy and everything that it kept her from being able to enjoy the richness of the relationship with her parents. And when I met her finally, and she talked to me, she told me, she says, yes, I had to let go of that, you see. And but it took her a couple of months after her dad had opened this business. And before then, she would finally set foot in the door of the business. And so she missed out on some of that richness for a couple of months. And she finally worked her way to be able to let go. Well, the easier it is that we can let go of things, the less attachment we have. Some people have attachments, tremendous attachments to their sports teams. In fact, I remember when the Seahawks here in Seattle, I'm in Seattle, when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, then the next year, the first couple of games, home games, fights broke out in the crowd, in the stands, because if there was anybody there that was rooting for the other team and not the Seahawks, then the home team crowd would really get riled up, and there would always be then somebody would start swinging and fists would start flying and fights would break out. It was a common occurrence because people got so attached to their Seahawks that, it's like, what do you mean you're talking bad about our Seahawks, or whatever would go on, and fists would start to fly because people would get so attached, so emotionally involved. And you see that with like the World Cup soccer, that sometimes a number of years ago that Vancouver, Canada, not too far from me here in Seattle, they lost the World Cup and a riot broke out. I mean, a major riot broke out in Vancouver, Canada. And because the fans were so upset, that was how they ended up expressing themselves. And so we get these crazy attachments to religion, to labor unions, to politics, to food, to relationships and people, to our pets, and so it can be attachment to things. And I'll talk more about that later. But so the attachments that we have can make our life complicated. Fourth thing that can make our life complicated is because we don't design a life of simplicity and ease. Now, this is something I learned from my partner, Kat. And she started to express to me about my life. And we talked about very early in our relationship. Now, some people just seem to have easy lives. And in fact, I gave her the middle name of Easy. And we would joke about that because not only easy sexually, but easy meant that she just took the easy route with life. And it's like, how can you do that? And I seem to like want to work so hard at things. And I wanted to just do things in a way that they were never easy. And I couldn't understand why they were always so easy for her. And so we started to talk about that, just kind of as people do on an ongoing basis. Once in a while, we have a conversation, and I started to understand and to learn that I created my own complication. And so I instead needed to design into my life ease and simplicity. And so that is something I realized that we sometimes don't have, or we have these complicated lives. And the reason why is because we don't design ease and simplicity into our life. And so therefore we allow complication just to creep in and take over. That was the case with me, because sure enough, so Kat and I started talking about all this. I realized, because I've always been someone that, or not always, but I mean, I as long as I've known Kat, I've been somebody who has really talked about designing and being intentional about living your life and creating the life that you want instead of having the life that you got. And so for me, having the life I got was complicated. And what I wanted was a life of simplicity and of ease. And I had to design that into my life and not just allow the complication of life to flow into my life. And so that was the fourth reason reason why people live complicated lives. The fifth reason is that they get complicated because they put their energy on being complicated rather than being simple and easy. So going back to the other day when I talked about when I was really feeling stressed, and so I didn't put my energy to feeling like I just needed to try to get to feeling less stressed, because that creates more stress. Instead, you put your energy on where you're going and what you want out of it. And so for me, then I didn't want stress. I wanted to be free-spirited and relaxed and easygoing and just feel enjoyment. And so I started to really try to mentally and with my thoughts and my words and my feelings, I started to intentionally shift that. And And that's part of that exercise I talked about, stretching and exercising your mental muscle so that you can learn to exercise those things. And the more you exercise them, the more you actually start gaining control of your words, your thoughts, and your feelings, instead of allowing them just to come along and then you go along with whatever comes along. And you're really not in control. You're out of control. And that was my case, in that I didn't have simplicity and ease in my life at all. And so I had to then learn to, like, I used to say that, and I caught myself the other day because this still creeps up. I mean, I've been working on my journey of reinventing my life of simple and a life of simplicity and ease for a number of years now. But still, my old ways will crop up once in a while. And in the past week, some of the stuff, my old ways did crop up, and came in. I had to then realize that, oh, that's that old me. That's not who I am now. And what the old me is that I just have a difficult life. I have a hard life. I used to then, when I met Kat, I told her, I said, my life can be difficult. So if you want to be in life with me, then that can be difficult sometimes. But it's very rewarding, but it's difficult along the way. Let me just take a look here and see who's here. No, it's saying that it's still having problem connecting the chat. So I'm sorry about that. I don't know why it's having that problem. Probably it's something to do with my internet connection, or maybe it's just something going on with YouTube. I have no idea. So if nothing else, I hope that you'll write your questions down. And then when this goes on as a video, put your questions down, or your comments, whatever it is that you have that you'd be wanting to put in the chat that's not working. So you'd get that in the comments, and then I can address that. Okay. And so the 5 reasons, just review now, 5 reasons that things get so complicated in life that I come up with. And please, as I mentioned before, is to add your own reasons why. And because you see, we all put so much effort or so much emphasis on and value on our reasons. Well, these are the reasons why my life is complicated. Keeping our life stuck in a place of being complicated. And so it's important for you to go ahead and list your reasons for what makes your life so complicated. Because once you identify that, then and I always say that awareness is the very first step to growth and progress. And so without that awareness, and that you just are sitting there stuck. And so awareness of your own reasons of why your life is complicated, or why your life gets complicated, can help you to look at that and write them down. And because when you write them down, then you can look at that. And then some of the things I'm going to be going through in a moment will help you to no longer have that be your reason, but you'll be able to look at it with a different perspective and get past that. So you're not stuck any longer having a complicated life. And in fact, then you're going to have an uncomplicated life. So the 5 reasons is that we try to control things that are outside of us rather than controlling what we can control. Second is that we try to possess things and also people that are outside of us. Third is that we have a heavy attachment to something or someone. Fourth is that we don't design and create a life of simplicity and ease. And so what comes along just kind of creeps in there is complication. And fifth is we put the energy, our words, our thoughts, and our feelings to having complicated lives. And that's why in the title of this video, I put it in the title as I started out saying how to have a less complicated life. You see, but wait a minute. That's still putting energy to complication. And that's not what we want. And so we want the opposite of that. And what's the opposite of that? That's to have an uncomplicated life. And so I rephrased the title to this video and said, about having an uncomplicated, sexually liberated, non-monogamous life. And so that's putting the energy to what we want instead of putting the energy to what we don't want. Yes, we want to, you could say, I want a less complicated. Do you really want a less complicated life? Because, okay, a less complicated, isn't that still complicated? And so you don't want a less complicated life. You want an uncomplicated life. And so if you put your energy to having a less complicated life, guess what you're going to get? You're still going to get a complicated life. And so instead, put your energy to what you want. And what you want is an uncomplicated life. And an uncomplicated life is a life that is simple and a life that is easy. Instead of what I used to always say, it's hard and it's difficult. And my relationships are complicated. I don't understand why my life's so hard. Why is life so hard? Why is it just unfair? I work so hard, and it's like, of course, that's what I got. I created that. I created that because of the energy that I put out with my words and my thoughts and my feelings. And all it took to change all of that is to shift the energy focus. So let's talk about then 3 steps to reinventing your life with simplicity and ease. Okay? First is to design the life that you want. And that's what we're just talking about. You see, when you think about it, when you're wanting to go to the grocery store, you don't sit there thinking about where you're at. You think about wanting to go to the grocery store. Okay, I want to go to the grocery store. I've got to go to the grocery store. And you start thinking about that instead of thinking about, no, I just want to stay here. I just want to stay here. I just want to stay where I'm at. I want to stay where I'm at. No, you wanted to go to the grocery store. Or, last night I went to a movie and saw a great movie. And so I wanted to go to a movie. How I got there is because I said to my partner, Chris, I said, hey, you want to go to a movie tonight? I would like to see this movie, Uncle Drew. And so guess what? We went and ended up at the movie. And our life is just that simple as well. We complicate it, but when we design simplicity and ease into our life and create that intentional life, then our internal GPS will point us in the direction of the life that we want to create. And so stay focused on where you want to go, not where you're at. If I had stayed focused, these conversations that I had with Kat about ease and as opposed to difficulty, guess what? I'd still be having a difficult life. But my life is getting easier and simpler every day. And I'm enjoying having a life of ease now compared to the life of complexity and difficulty I used to have. Okay? So write down the life that you want. This is a very important step in designing the life that you want, is to write it down and then review it daily. You see, because if you don't review it daily, because chances are it's not just something like, well, I'm going to go to the grocery store. And so you get in your car and you go there and you do that, and in a half hour or an hour later, you're back. And you've done that task. And chances are where you really want to go is not that short term of a focus. But you see, if you treated going to the grocery store in the same way you treat the bigger things that you want, you allow things like disbelief set in, you allow distractions to come along, all kinds of things that are excuses that keeps you from getting where you want to go. or you just really, like I said about having a complicated life that I had. It's just that's what came into my life because I did not design a life of simplicity and ease. And when Kat and I started talking about that, I realized that. And so that's when I made a video, in fact, about your 5 key words. And go back and review that video if you haven't seen that, about 5 keywords, because there's 5 keywords that your keywords are going to be different than mine. But there should be 5 keywords that you have that you roll off in your mind in order to create the life that you want. And when you can roll off those 5 keywords in your mind to create the life that you want, then it makes it easy to be able to have those rolling off in your mind. And that keeps you moving in the direction of going to the grocery store, or in this case, something more that you want. Maybe what you want is you want to be able to live a life of sexual freedom and liberation and abundance, where you have an abundance of sexual partners and you have an abundance of wonderful sexual experiences. Or you have a life of health that is free of the medical system that we have. Or you have a financial life that is better off. Whatever it is, and I have where, my compass is set where I want to increase my abundance, liberation, and freedom in all 3 of those areas. And I have different things then that I then will take and do to create the life that I want. And so write it down and then review it daily for yourself. Next little thing under designing the life that you want. First thing is to write it down and review it daily. Second then is to be decisive in simplifying your life to have what you want and value. So often there are so many distractions and so many things that come along that we don't really have the things that we want and that we value because of all the things that we do have in our life. It's cluttering our life up. And boy, I tell you what, I have learned a lot about that in this process that I'm going through this year of basically moving from my 2,600 square foot house to my 800 square foot house, and I'm going to be building the addition on that. But my 2,600 square foot house, I've been here in this house. I mean, I cut the trees down that were on this property, and 34 years ago, and the things that I held on to, because I put value on those things. Been in business myself, so I've had employees. I mean, the records that I've kept, and now I've got such a stack of them, that it was going to cost me hundreds of dollars to have a shredding company come and just get rid of all the records that I had. And so that's one of the things then is when you start to being decisive on how to simplify your life so that you have this crap. And I'll talk more about that in a few moments here. But so write it down and review it daily. And then be decisive about simplifying your life so that you are focused on the things that you value the most. And then you break it down. Break it down so that, I'll just read this to you. Focus on simplicity and increasing your abundance, your liberation, and your freedom with 3 things in your life. Financially, with your health, and with your sex life. Because everything else in your life will encompass will be a subset of one of those 3 things. And so financially, with your health, and with your sex life. And so your sex life, yes, that can incorporate your love life, but like I said, everything else that is going to come along is going to be within those 3 categories. And so you want to break those categories down. And so you find out what you're passionate about in each of those 3 categories. What are you passionate about with the work that you do? And if you're not passionate about, like for instance, myself, over the last couple of years when I started Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association, I mean, that's my passion. But over the last couple of years, I've had a lot of things that going on that was not involved because it's the work. A Non-Monogamous Lifestyle Association, I'm putting money into it, not making money out of it. And so I had to be making, money other places. When I put a lot of my time and effort in places that I wasn't passionate about, but it was what I had to do so that I could enjoy putting time and effort into my passion, and that is building Non-Monogamous Lifestyle Association. And so financially, that is my passion, is to build this as a nonprofit business that will also be able to provide some financial support. But then, health-wise, 2 years ago, today is the 8th, and 8th of July, and it was exactly 2 years ago today, the 8th of July, it was a Saturday 2 years ago, but not a Saturday, but a Friday, excuse me. But 8th of July, when I got into my auto accident, where the traffic on the freeway came to a stop, and I came to a stop, and I mean, all lanes, so I couldn't divert it. I couldn't go anywhere. I had to come to a stop, look up my rearview mirror. I could tell that big old truck and trailer behind me was not going to be able to come to a stop. There's nothing I could do but let him hit me. I mean, I couldn't do nothing more. And he hit me and totaled my vehicle, and I'm still under treatment and therapy and physically today. And so, for then, one of the things with my health is that became very important that I just start focusing on is going to four appointments every week that would take a couple hours, and 4 appointments every week of physical therapy and recovery and all this kind of stuff. And so that became very important to me, obviously. And so that became a priority. And so what do you find out what you need in your health? Because other than that, because a number of years ago, 10 years ago, I started 15 years ago, I started focusing on my health, and I started getting that tuned up. And so figure out for yourself, what you can be passionate about in tuning up your health. Maybe it's turning your life, like when I decided to start working and turning things around for me, is to turn your life into doing something where your life becomes more active and doing more active things. And so for me, I love to go dancing, and I love to go hiking, and I love to go bicycling. And so I turned my motorcycle in, which was what was taking my time. I mean, weekends would come along, and I had a 1200 Suzuki and a trailer that I towed behind it with all my gear, and that trailer was ready to go when Friday came along, and I would then jump on that bike, and I'd be gone for the weekend. But see, that ended up taking all my time. And yes, I love that, but I wanted to recreate my life to doing something where it was going to be beneficial to me, and instead of just, something that I enjoyed. Because you look at all the other motorcyclists that I was hanging out with, and they were all fat motorcyclists. And some ones that getting older, they, would have a heart attack and stuff. And that's not anything I wanted. And so I was in my 40s, and I said, I'm going to trade my motorcycle in for a bicycle. And so I became passionate about riding bicycles, and I became passionate about hiking, and just living a more active life. I like to go out dancing. And so I try to do things that are much more active. And so find out what you can become passionate about for your own health. And then find out what you can become passionate about for your own sex. And so for me, it came a point where I decided that it wasn't going to be my wife that was going to be my passion. And so I needed a different passion. And so I needed to first open up my marriage. And so I took 2 years of a process. And so that's where it's, if I didn't have my focus on that process, guess what? You'd be like, oh yeah, I got to go to the grocery store. Oh, nope, I'm going to go off and watch this TV program. I'm not going to go to the grocery store. I totally get distracted. I would not be non-monogamous, Mark, today. And so you think about, what you want to have passion for yourself sexually. And for me, it was realizing that it wasn't going to be having exclusive sex with my wife and no one else. It meant that, sure, my wife and I could still have sex, but I was going to have sex with other people. And what I've learned, because I mean, my relationships that I have right now is with women that I really thoroughly enjoy. I got two relationships that are deeply committed relationships, and I thoroughly enjoy those women in my life. However, I find that if I am not enjoying myself with multiple people sexually, that I have less desire to enjoy myself with my committed partners. Now, yes, in the beginning of a relationship, it's always hot and heavy. But then what adds for me the fuel to the fire is having other sexual variety and enjoyment with other women. Then that adds fuel to my fire. And so for me, then that became a passion of mine. And so that may be something that you need to find out what you can be passionate about sexually. So then remember, when things, don't seem to be going in the direction you want, remember that simple formula is to stop, breathe, and you can always reset. So when you reinvent your life here and you design and you create the life that you want and you start moving in that direction, and suddenly, like I told you that a week ago, I got to this place where it was less than a week ago where it seemed like things, that old me was creeping back in, where things just are hard, they're difficult. Wait a minute, is that what it needs to be? Why is it hard? Why is it difficult? Because I make it hard and I make it difficult. And so, I allowed that to creep back in. And I said, well, wait a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and figure out what I need to do to simplify this. And for me, for instance, I had over 150 items on a list of things that I needed to get done. And I said, okay, wait a minute. What are the big ones? And I started to focus on the big ones on the list, the ones that I needed to get done that would really make a huge difference. And the little ones, they'll get done in the process, or they won't get done at all and won't really matter that much. And so I needed to focus on the really big ones, and that made a huge difference. And so maybe that will help you, is to realize that when you focus on the big stuff, the little stuff just either goes away or it takes care of itself, or you'll have time to work the little stuff in. Okay, so focus on the big stuff. And so 3 steps to reinventing your life with simplicity and ease. The first step is to design the life that you want. The second step is to embrace minimalism. Now, I talk about minimalism, quite fairly regularly, but I decided it was time that I really kind of helped you to understand a little more about what minimalism is. And so I got here where minimalism is a tool that can assist you in pursuing a purpose-driven life, increasing your abundance, your liberation, and your freedom from fear. And instead of fear, have confidence and joy. From worry, to have a life of ease and simplicity. From overwhelm, to having a life that is stress-free, but it's just relaxed. Yeah, I don't feel overwhelmed. From guilt, instead of a life of guilt, having a life that you're excited about. Depression, having a life of, instead of having a life of depression, having a life that you feel like you are alive. And so what minimalism is it's a tool that can help you to pursue a purpose-driven life, to increase your abundance, your liberation, freedom. We just talked about that instead of worry and anxiety, we have relaxation and simplicity and ease. And so one of the things, though, is that we get caught up in the trappings of our consumer culture. And we built our lives around this because of the meaning that we assign to things. And as I have taken over this last year, gone through and cleaned out so much stuff, and I just can't believe And that briefcase, I attached a lot of meaning to it because it was the first briefcase I ever bought. It had been sitting up in my attic for over 10 years. Because at one point, 15 years ago, I owned a company where I was traveling all over the United States. And I thought, it would be nice maybe while I'm traveling all over the United States to stop once in a while and smell the roses, and I'll stop and I'll fish. So I I spent a lot of money. Probably at that point, it was about $500. Today it would be about $1,000 by buying really great fishing gear that all fit in this briefcase. I mean, even I had a telescoping fishing rod that was really high quality fishing rod. And so, I got all this really high quality gear, put it in that fit in this briefcase. And it was a big briefcase. It was a leather fat briefcase, about this fat and size of a briefcase, and old style, not new style. I ended up buying a newer briefcase a couple of years after that because that one was just too big. And but made a great fishing box, or that I created this fishing box out of it. And then I threw that in my vehicle, and I carried that around the country with me for 2 years as I traveled around the country building this company I built, and thought that I'd go fishing. I used it once, one time in 2 years. And when I stopped then traveling around like that, I put it in my attic. And it's been in my attic for well over 10 years. And yet, that was one of the hardest things for me to let go of. And so what I'm doing and getting rid of a lot of stuff is so that somebody can get some, good use of it, is I'm putting it on the grass strip in front of my house. And people drive by. I live on a fairly busy street, and people drive by and they see that I got things out there now. They know to look for things. But I put that fishing gear out there, and it wasn't even 10 minutes later, and it was gone. Some guy in a truck driving up the street, saw the fishing gear out there, because I also put all my old poles and my salmon reels and my big nets and all that stuff that. Yeah, it was in my attic for over 20 years, my fishing gear, and I didn't use it. And I think, well, if I ever go fishing again, it'd be better to rent gear, new gear, or, I don't plan on doing a lot of fishing. If I did, then yeah, maybe I'd keep the gear. So, but that was some reason I had a hard time letting go of that gear. And that was one of the last things. I had it sitting in my garage because, I cleared out everything else first. Putting it down. I don't put everything down there on the grass strip at one time. I put a few things out every day, and then they all disappear. And so that fishing gear was one of the last things that I put out there, because I just had this attachment to it because the value that I put on it. And just like the value that I put on, like part of half of my home here, I built it myself. And I had a job years ago where I sold construction supplies, and I knew how to read blueprints and learned that if I could read a set of blueprints, I can build anything and do anything that I wanted building wise, if it was just out of wood. And so I constructed a lot of stuff here and on my property here. And so with that, though, I saved pieces of lumber. They're 3 feet long and 2 feet long, and I saved so much lumber material, thinking one of these days I'll use that. Same thing then over the last 34 years of being here, with screws and bolts and hardware. And oh my gosh, I couldn't believe the stuff that I collected. And so, the thing is that we put value on all that stuff. And I lived in a world of scarcity instead of a world of abundance. And so I held on to everything. Well, I may need that one of these days. That's a world of scarcity. That's the same thing we can do with our relationships. Well, I don't want to let this relationship go, because then I might not be getting any sex. A little bit of sex would be better than no sex. And I don't want to let this relationship go. I talked about, I think it was last week, about that you have a relationship that maybe at the time was the right relationship, but it's maybe not the right relationship for you now. Or maybe it never was the right relationship. You just got into the relationship because of other reasons or certain reasons, but it really wasn't the right relationship for you. But now that you find yourself, needing to do something about that. And so, we place value on things that end up complicating our lives instead of creating lives of simplicity and ease in our life and giving us the life that we want instead of the life that we have. And so that's then another thing is to embrace this idea of and concept of minimalism. And I'm going to read you another definition. Minimalism is the process of identifying what is essential in your life and intentionally eliminate the rest. And that's what I've been talking about here, is whether it be, stuff that we acquire or being attached to an old relationship instead of just letting it go. The 5 levels of attachment, level number 1 and 2 are healthy levels. Level 3, 4, and 5 are not healthy levels. And so if you don't really understand that, that book might be helpful to you. It's called 5 Levels of Attachment. And but letting stuff go. And minimalism then is a process of identifying what's essential in your life and then intentionally eliminating the rest. And that's the process that I've been through. Kat's already been through this process where we live in California in a space that we enjoy living in a co-living environment. And we're not having to spend all of our pay on where we live. We're able to take and enjoy our life a little more and have a little better lifestyle because of the living arrangement that we have, which is a co-living environment. And so then another idea I want to give you about minimalism is that minimalism includes minimalism includes being intentional about the way you spend your time, your money, and how you think. And so, when you think about your time, your money, and how you think, that's your yeses and your nos, isn't it? And minimalism simply helps you to be intentional about how you spend your time and your money and being intentional about your thoughts. And when you start being intentional about your thoughts and think about, do I want to live in an environment that increases my abundance, my liberation, and freedom, and have the energy that you create for that, or live in an environment where you're constantly just accumulating stuff and you're stuck in the past? I had a girlfriend one time and she told me that, and this was in a conversation we had. It wasn't something that she was saying in anger or anything. She says, Mark, one of the things that I don't know if you know this about yourself is that in some areas, in some ways, you're kind of stuck in the past. And so we started having conversations about that because I didn't understand what she meant by that. You see, and truly I was stuck in the past because of my life of scarcity that I lived, where, that I didn't want to let go of stuff. I got that from my grandfather. He was a penny pincher, is what he was known to be, as a real serious penny pincher. And people who came up through the Depression know how to pinch a penny. And used to say that you can pinch a penny so tight that it make the hog squeal. And so I picked that up from my grandfather. And so that, his whole life, when he passed away, one of the things that I cleaned out his shop. And used to be years ago, you buy coffee in a big can that was about this round and about this high. It's called number 1010 if you're in the restaurant business, but you buy Folgers and Maxwell House coffee and what have you that in those cans. And then you'd open them, and then they always had a plastic top that you would just put out the plastic lid on it. And he had probably 40 of those cans full of nuts and bolts that he had collected. He was a flight test mechanic at Boeing, and they would test all kinds of different things. One of the things is he'd test different kinds of rubbers and different kinds of rubber material, different kinds of bolts and nuts and all kinds of stuff. And he'd come home at the end of the day sometimes, and he'd have all kinds of stuff in his pocket because of all the kinds of stuff that they're doing. And he would just empty that stuff out and throw it in those cans, and throw it in those cans. Then when he died, he had about 40 of those cans. I guess that'd be about one can a year for the years he worked or something, And here's something that when I started cleaning up the stuff here, I had so much just junk metal. I had so much junk metal, it took me 2 truckloads to haul it to the metal recycler. So I figured, well, I got to get rid of it, right? So how do you get rid of it? You haul it to the metal recycler. I mean, they'll actually pay you for it. Well, I didn't have a truck, and so I paid someone for between. His basis says, "Hey, I'll fill your gas tank with gas if you come and and let's use your truck for 2 truckloads here." And it was $45 worth of gas, and the stuff when I took the 2 loads to the metal recycler, in total, it was $36 and change that I got for those 2 loads together. It's not even enough to pay for what it cost me to get rid of it. It cost me $45 worth of gas, a tank of gas, fill up the guy's gas tank, and I couldn't even get that much worth out of the metal. And so $45 it cost me, $36 is what I got out of it. Well, at least it didn't cost me more than that, But so yeah, this stuff that we keep and acquire and collect, and after a while, it's just junk that we've got to get rid of. Or if you don't get rid of it, then like when my grandfather died, I had to get rid of it all. And so minimalism helped me to understand how to intentionally use my time and my money, and intentionally start choosing my thoughts, which my thoughts control the words and control my feelings as well. And so one of the things that I read today in looking up this guy that I follow, he says about minimalism, what the minimalist lifestyle brought to him, because he was a big corporate bigwig, and he went out and he just quit his job and started living as a minimalist, and decided to do some things that follow his passions, and has lived a different life. He says, but the things that the minimalism helped him with, and I wrote this down in my notes then, because those are the same things that help me, and so they'll be the same things that might help you. So that one of the things is, he says, it eliminates discontent. Yeah, you find that discontent, all that stuff, you're working so hard, and you've got all this clutter in your life. It just adds to this discontentment that when you clear all that stuff out, you start thinking clearer, and it eliminates your disconnect or your discontent. You start to reclaim your time, because like I said, when I was out motorcycling years ago, all my extra time, man, I was spent going out on that motorcycle. And yes, I enjoyed that, but it wasn't good for my health. And so I reclaimed that time and found something that I enjoyed just as much. And that's getting together with people, going out on bicycle rides and going out on hikes. And so you can do things that are good for your health that you will enjoy just as much. Before I ever discovered how much I enjoyed motorcycling, if I didn't discover that, then I would have had that time to discover something else. We have a tendency of filling our time with things, whether those things and activities that we do are really all that good for us or not, even though we may have a good time doing it. Look at what your options are, though. And so reclaim your time, minimalism. It helps you to live in the moment. You live in the moment so you can enjoy the day so much greater than living in the past or living for the future all the time. Helps you to pursue your passions. Certainly helped me to pursue my passion of developing the Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association and clearing all this stuff out of my life. Then that's one of the things I'll be doing more of, is spending more time to build Non-Monogamous Lifestyle Association. Helps us to discover our mission. That's what I did. Experience real freedom in our life. That's kind of where I started this idea of the Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association, to help you to increase your abundance, your liberation, your freedom, financially, in your health and sexually, because in my value system, there are no three things that are more important. Everything else falls in those under those categories. Becoming minimalist allows you to focus on your health, helps you to grow as an individual, where you can take the time to focus on your own personal growth and development, reading books and stuff, where you can start to contribute to others that's beyond yourself, like I was contributing here. And this was something that was a desire of mine when I became non-monogamous 11 years ago, but it took me 9 years to get to where I could start to contribute. We rid ourselves of all the excess stuff in our life when we become a minimalist. And we discover purpose in our life. So then in this process of reinventing your life with simplicity and ease, I said there's 3 steps to that. The first step was to design the life that you want. The second is to embrace minimalism. And the third, it's the final step, is to unravel your life. You see, because sometimes, like I said, when I decided to become non-monogamous, Mark, I had been in monogamy for so long. It took me 2 years to go through that process of unraveling my monogamous life to become a non-monogamous person. And so it doesn't necessarily happen overnight, like going to the grocery store. But that's where then you need to also keep your focus and your energy moving you forward on this, and so that you don't forget about it. But sometimes you need to take and unravel your life, as I have done. I did that when I unraveled my monogamous life, and I did that even before that, about 5 years before that. I unraveled my religious life, and then I had gotten so steeply involved in religion that I became the religious person I never wanted to be. And once I realized that, then I realized there's a problem. I didn't know what it was, and so I needed to take a step back and unravel that a little bit and figure out what was going on. And so I started to unravel that, and then I became a spiritual person, but no longer a religious person. And that's when I started to discover that maybe not following my religious ways, maybe the answers to my life and to my joy and happiness is to live a non-monogamous life instead of living the monogamous life that I got. And so unraveling your life, the process of that is to first take a step, and I needed to take a step back and unravel the life that I have here in Seattle. And because I enjoy this simplicity and the ease that I have in my life in California. And so I'm in that process of continuing to unravel the life that I have here in Seattle. And in this process, where hopefully in another 2 weeks that my house will be listed on the market for sale, and I'll have all this last year or 15 months now behind me when I've been focused on working on my house, getting the repairs done on it and all. And so you got to take a step or two back, and you got to unravel and clean up your life. Sometimes the past things, and even then, after I get moved, one of the things this house I'm moving into, it's got a large garage, and there's no cars. It's a 2-car garage, and we don't have any cars in there. It's full of stuff that we still have to get rid of, and a lot of that stuff. There's a portion of that garage that is all of my business stuff that I have to go over, because some of that stuff I can't just toss out. And I didn't have time to go through every bit of it before having to get out of here. And so it was just all put over there in the garage. And then once I get moved over there, I figure it's going to take me another year to go through all that stuff and to clean and unravel and clean up that part of my life. And so another part then is to, once you've taken a step or two back, because sometimes you're stuck so much. And this thing I want to emphasize is that I've been there too, where I'm stuck because I'm really trying to keep going forward, but I'm just stuck there. Instead, it's helpful to take a step or two back. And so when we're talking about financially, maybe you need to take a step or two back financially. We're talking about with your health, Maybe you need to take a step or two back with your health temporarily. You got to figure out what that means. I'm not a medical professional, so I try to stay away from that. But take a step or two back to be able to see that maybe there's some better options for you. Like for me, taking a step or two back where I was getting fat. I'd gone from 145 pounds when I got married up to 248 pounds until I took a step back and I saw my life on that motorcycle and I saw the people that I was associating with. And I realized taking that step back meant cashing in that motorcycle and making a change. And so you can't, until you take a step back or two steps back, you can't really see that sometimes. And so sometimes you need to take a step or two back. And sometimes, you know, that financially, for me, for instance, I needed to take a step back financially and just kind of regroup a little bit when I started to a reinvention process of my life financially. And sometimes it helps to do that sexually, you know, and taking a step back and just seeing what do you need in your life to increase your abundance, your liberation, and your freedom sexually so that you can have the life that you dream to have. And so take a step back or two and then unravel and clean things up like I did when I opened my marriage. And then once you've gone through those first two things, then you're ready to throttle up and go with full steam ahead. And when you go full steam ahead, again, keep your minimalist life, embrace that. And what your minimalist life will do is help you to understand the things that you truly value in your life so that you're not having all this stuff come along, like my motorcycle. You know, was it that I valued the motorcycle? No, I valued going out and seeing places and being with people I enjoyed spending time with. And so, you know, I can still do that, but on a bicycle instead. And not only that, then when I moved to California, I realized that what I wanted to do is I wanted to develop friends whom I could do things with, whom at the end of the day, instead of saying, hey, it's been a nice ride for the day, you go and have sex together. And so that's a lot more fun, you know? Everybody's got sweaty bodies, and so let's go get a shower together and go from there and have a lot of fun. Or let's not shower, let's just enjoy our sweaty bodies, or whatever you want to do. But that's where when I moved to California 2 years ago, it was coming up in another month, September 1st is the day we landed there 2 years ago. And so coming up in another month, it'll be 2 years. But I started to realize that the simple life that I had in California is not the simple life that I have in Seattle. And what I want to create in Seattle now is that simple life. In order to create that, though, I have to unravel my life that I have here in Seattle in order then to create the life that I want of simplicity and ease. And once I get that, then you're ready to throttle up, move full steam ahead with the things that you truly want and value in your life. And for me, I value a rich, enjoyable love life where I'm emotionally involved with people. I value a rich, enjoyable sex life where I'm enjoying sex with my friends, not just my lovers. And I enjoy a rich, valuable life of just doing simple things like going to a movie or having friends over for dinner. And then so we all cook together. And then after we all cook and have dinner, we don't want to eat too much, because if we eat too much, we're not going to want to have fun and have sex and play together. And so, you know, doing those things. Does that mean that goes on all the time? Of course not. It's just like, you know, nobody can have sex 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? We have other things involved in our life that we've got going on as well. So we find this balance, but you find that balance by making sure that you know the things that you truly value the most, and you then create a life that you design that is a life that is simple, and it's a life of ease, and it's a life of pure enjoyment, instead of having a life full of complications. So thank you very much for attending tonight's training. I see there's one person that's been here with me all through, and I appreciate that. And so again, I'm sorry the chat didn't work. Hopefully by next week, I'm going to be having my internet in my new house and that I'm living in, and I got 1 gigabyte of internet speed. It's like way more than I'll ever need. I'm paying more than what I need to for that as well. But at this particular time, they offered me a killer deal, a gigabyte of speed for $70 a month, I think it was, and they'll lock me into that for life. That particular property, I'm going to create a intentional family situation out of there where I'm going to have anywhere between 6 and 8 couples, which would be including myself as well, that would living in that, have a space to have a home in that house. And with that many people, I want to make sure that I'm going to have lightning fast internet for everybody. And so I went ahead and got that gigabyte of internet. It's fiber optic cables they have here in this area. And so it's a super high speed. I mean, I've got right now what I can do, I've got 40 megabytes is what I've got now. So 40 megabytes compared to a gigabyte. I don't even understand all this stuff, but it's a lot. Okay. And so maybe that right now I'm having some technical difficulties because of the internet situation here, but that'll all be changed for next week, hopefully. But in the meantime, put your comments and your questions in the comment box. And thank you very much for being here. And I'm going to, as soon as we wrap up here, I'm going to put a link in that box as well that allows you to go ahead and click on that link and get on our email list, and so that you can keep knowledgeable about what's going on with Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association. We got some great stuff going on, and so you'll want to know about all of that. And so thanks a lot, and enjoy your whole week.